Your body is literally changing how it builds and maintains muscle at the cellular level. Okay. And I want to break this down in a way that you can understand what's going on here, because I think this is truly will open your eyes. If you're experiencing body composition changes, like why am I gaining all this belly fat? Why does my body look softer? Like what is actually going on? When we lose estrogen, we also lose what's called estrogen receptor alpha in our muscles. Think of these receptors as little docking stations that help estrogen do its job of keeping our muscles strong and responsive. Welcome to Muscle Strength and Menopause, the podcast for women over 40 who refuse to accept that nothing works anymore. I'm your host, Sarah Frenza, a certified nutrition coach, fitness expert, and hormone and menopause specialist, and the founder of the science-backed Hourglass Body Method. After losing 50 pounds in my 40s and helping hundreds of women transform their bodies and life, I'm here to show you the real way to lose fat, build muscle, and get stronger in midlife without burnout, starvation, or shame. If you're tired of fighting your hormones, struggling with stubborn belly fat, or wondering if it's too late to build the strong, confident body you want, you're in the right place. Each week, we'll break down the science, bust the myths, and share the exact strategies that are working right now for women in perimenopause and menopause, because muscle is your menopause superpower, and we're about to show you how to claim it. Let's dive in. All right, ladies, hello, and welcome back to another live episode of the Muscle Strength and Menopause podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Frenza, and this is where we are ditching the BS and get real about what actually works for building the body that you want as a woman over 40. So today we're tackling something that comes up in my DMs all the time, which is, Sarah, I've never touched a weight in my life. I know I need to build muscle. I know I need to strength train. I'm 52. I have no idea where to start. And I get this DM all the time. It's like, I know I need to do this, but I have no idea where to start. I don't know what to do. What do they end up doing? They just end up going to do a group fitness class at the gym, or they pull up a YouTube video and start following some random YouTube video at home and start working out at home. But the other biggest fear that I hear is that a lot of women feel that they are too old to get started with this. And I want to tell you, it is not only is it not too late, it's actually the perfect time. I'm going to tell you exactly why your changing hormones make strength training a non-negotiable if you want to feel strong, confident, and actually fit into your clothes without, living on lettuce and shame for the rest of your life. But at first, I want to tell you a little story about my client, Nancy. Nancy joined our program. She joined our program a couple of years ago, back in 2023. She was with us for a year. And when she joined my program, she told me that she couldn't carry a case of water into her home. She felt very, very weak. She had to rely on her family to carry this case of water in. And I would imagine that it was probably hard for her to bring her groceries in as well, too. But one of her goals when she came to me is like, I want to get strong enough so I can carry this case of water on my own. And she stayed with us for a year. And I remember her sending me a text message. Her daughters were moving to university. And I think one of them was moving into like campus, and another one, her other daughter was like moving somewhere else, I think to an apartment or a home or something like that. I don't remember the fine details of it. But what I do remember is her text message to me saying, Sarah, I moved both my daughters this week, and I had so much strength that I was actually picking up furniture. I was moving furniture. My family was looking at me like, oh my God, like, who is this woman? And the feeling that she had, that she was able to help her family out, was just incredible. It was amazing. Like, if you think about it, a year prior to that, or maybe it could have been a little bit more than a year, when she actually texted me this, she couldn't even lift up a case of water. And now here she is picking up furniture, moving furniture for her daughters, helping her move. Not only could she pick up a case of water, she's picking up other heavy stuff because she got her strength back. She started building muscle. And I'll tell you, with Nancy, she never strength trained before. This was all very new for her. And when she was working out, she didn't go to a gym. She's like, listen, I don't want to go to a gym. I want to do this at home. And we did this all with working out at home, with having equipment, just dumbbells. I think she had some resistance bands. That is typically what we recommend our clients to do. Dumbbells, resistance bands, and, maybe like one of those Bosu balls, those big giant exercise balls. And she followed our program. The other thing I want to tell about Nancy is that prior to coming to work with us, she had done Weight Watchers. She had spent years dieting, not eating carbs, not eating food, like not doing any of that. And if you want to, like, the biggest thing for her when she came to our program is like, I can't believe I can eat potatoes. I can't believe I can eat rice. I can't believe I can have a slice of bread. Like, I can't believe that I can eat all these carbs. And her food became delicious. But she also, when she was doing Weight Watchers, she felt extremely weak because she kept restricting and restricting and restricting. So when she came to our program, our first focus with her was to help her fuel her body first with enough protein, with enough carbs. We started her with the strength training program that she did at home. And I'm going to go, and then progressively, she started lifting heavier and heavier weights to the point where she, this became part of her lifestyle. She transformed her body. She looks incredible at her age. She's in her 50s. I think she's 53 right now, if I'm not mistaken. But she's in her 50s and she looks incredible. And she's a active part of her family, not sitting there weak anymore, but being able to participate and help and pick things up and not rely on her family and her husbands to do things. And that should be a great reason to wanting to be able to build muscle in midlife. But one thing that I want to do is I want to talk about what happens when you hit perimenopause and your estrogen starts doing its crazy roller coaster thing. You're not just dealing with hot flashes and mood swings. Your body is literally changing how it builds and maintains muscle at the cellular level. Okay. And I want to break this down in a way that you can understand what's going on here, because I think this is truly will open your eyes. If you're experiencing body composition changes, like, why am I gaining all this belly fat? Why does my body look softer? Like, what is actually going on? Okay. So when we lose estrogen, we also lose what's called estrogen receptor alpha in our muscles. Think of these receptors as little docking stations that help estrogen do its job of keeping our muscles strong and responsive. So without these docking stations, three things happen. So your muscle stops contracting as powerfully as it did when we had more estrogen. And that is why suddenly you might feel like you've lost strength. Okay. The next thing that happens is that your nerve to muscle communication gets sluggish. So it's like your brain is texting your muscles, but the Wi-Fi is down. And third, your muscle building signals get turned way down. So your body literally stops hearing the build muscle message. And this is why, that morning walk or that yoga or that Pilates, while these are wonderful for other reasons, aren't cutting it anymore. Your muscles need a loud signal to wake up and remember how to grow. And that loud signal, ladies, it's heavy weights. Okay. It's lifting heavy weights. Now, before I start, you start panicking about, getting bulky. I want to please, can we please put this fear to bed once and for all? I've been lifting heavy for the past 6 years. I deadlift, a heavy amount, like my body weight. I can squat with a barbell on my back. And guess what? I wear a size 6 and I'm not a linebacker uniform. And here's the truth. Women in menopause can't get bulky even if we tried. We don't have enough testosterone. And we're already fighting against declining hormones. And honestly, most of us aren't eating enough protein to build significant muscle mass, anyways. But what we can do is build lean, metabolically active muscle that burns calories even when you're not moving, gives you that tone defined look. Hello, hourglass body, and keeps your bones strong because osteoporosis is not cute, and it makes you functionally strong for life. Okay. One of my clients was terrified of lifting weights. She literally thought if she touched a dumbbell, she was going to wake up looking like The Rock. But 6 months later, she's down 2 dress sizes, can see muscle definition in her arms. And for the first time in 20 years, she looks smaller, not bigger, because muscle is denser than fat. So let's talk about, before we talk about like how to start strength training and how to actually build muscle, I want to talk about why muscle building is so important and literally the best investment that you can make in your menopausal body. Because this isn't just about looking good in a tank top, although that is a nice bonus. There are other reasons why muscle is so important for women over the age of 40. So the first thing is that muscle is your metabolic moneymaker. When we lose estrogen, we lose the signals that help maintain lean muscle mass, okay? And without intervention, we are literally programmed to lose muscle and gain fat during menopause. But here's the game changer. Muscle tissue is metabolically active. It requires energy just to maintain itself, while fat tissue is basically metabolically dead storage. So when you build and maintain muscle through strength training, you're increasing your resting metabolic rate, meaning the amount of calories that your body is burning at rest. You're improving your body's ability to use glucose instead of storing it as fat. And you're creating metabolically expensive tissue that burns calories 24/7. So the combination of muscle loss and metabolic slowdown during menopause is what drives that frustrating weight gain, especially around that midsection. But when we flip the script that to build muscle, we literally are reversing that metabolic decline. And so I want you to think of it this way. Fat is like a storage unit that just sits there. Muscle is like a furnace that needs constant fuel. Which one would you rather have? I know me, I want that muscle that's burning like a constant fuel. So the other thing that we need to consider is that the scale, if you're doing this properly and depending on how you go into, a weight loss journey or how do you want to lose body fat, I want to tell you the story about my Weight Watchers disaster because this perfectly illustrates why muscle matters more than the number on the scale. So years ago, when I started my weight loss journey, I did Weight Watchers and I did lose 40 pounds with Weight Watchers and I was thrilled. Okay. The scale said I was winning. But here's what actually happened. I lost, out of that 40 pounds, I lost maybe 20, 25 pounds of body fat, but I also lost about 15 or 20 pounds of precious muscle because I was eating like a bird. I was making sure I was following my points. And I will say, out of Weight Watchers, the thing that I did get out of it is that it taught me to be consistent with tracking my food and being consistent with that. But I was skinny fat. I was a smaller version of my overweight body. I had small legs. I had small arms, but I was still carrying a significant amount of belly fat. I had zero muscle definition and I was metabolically destroyed. And so when I had looked at myself, and I remember going on this vacation, we went to Dominican Republic. I was like, yay, I'm in, like, I lost all this weight. And then I looked at myself in my photos. I'm like, I don't look fit. Like, and that's not what I wanted. I wanted to look fit. I remember admiring a woman on the beach and I was like, oh my God, she looks so amazing. That's the body I want. I want to look fit, toned, look like have nice looking muscle on my body, like look toned and defined. And instead I wasn't. I had tiny little stick legs, tiny little arms. And then I had a whole bunch of belly fat in my midsection area. I didn't look like I wanted to look like. So fast forward to now, I'm actually, I weigh 10 pounds less than, when I had lost my Weight Watchers weight. But my body composition has completely changed. I look fit. I look toned. I look defined. My belly fat is not there. I created a beautiful shape to my body. And that is what happened when I started lifting weights. And I also ensured that I was eating enough protein in my diet, which I'll get to that in a moment, why both of these things are super important. But I completely changed my body composition. Now, had I done this the right way from the beginning, meaning that I was, eating in a calorie deficit, I was eating enough protein in my diet, and I was also strength training at the same time. When I got to that 40-pound weight loss, my body composition was going to look completely different. I wasn't going to have all of that belly fat because what happened when I lost weight like that is that I actually was losing so much muscle in the process. And I know, it is true. We cannot spot reduce where we're going to lose body fat. Okay. We cannot do that. But what we can have control over while we're losing weight is we can control whether we are losing muscle or whether we are losing, whether we are losing body fat or whether we are losing muscle and body fat. And the goal is always just to lose body fat only. We do not want to lose lean muscle mass when we're losing weight. And that is the mistake that I made, is that I lost weight losing a significant amount of muscle mass because all I did was cut my calories and I hardly worked out. I just cut my calories super low, which is what Weight Watchers is. There was no regard for how much protein I was getting in. And there was no mention of me like, hey, you should probably strength train to preserve lean muscle mass. So that is the outcome that I got. But then I saw the outcome that I got and I was like, I don't like this outcome. I don't actually look good in my clothes. I still have all this belly fat. Yes, okay, I'm 40 pounds lighter, but my body composition was not the way that I wanted to look. And it wasn't until I started strength training. I hired a coach because I was like, I don't like the way I look. Like, this is not the outcome I really wanted. I wanted to look fit. I wanted to look defined. I wanted that belly fat to go away. So while, yes, we cannot spot reduce where our body is going to lose fat, we can control how much muscle we are losing throughout the process by ensuring we're eating by our diets, by our nutrition, and what we choose to do in terms of exercise. So why else is muscle so important? So we covered body composition changes. It boosts your metabolism. Number 3, and this is huge for women over 40, when estrogen declines, we lose one of the key pathways for getting glucose into our muscle cells. As we lose those, these are called GLUT4 proteins. I want you to think of them as little doors that let glucose into your muscle. Without estrogen helping to open up those doors, glucose stays in your bloodstream longer, triggering more insulin release. So when we lose estradiol, there are 3 forms of estrogen. Estradiol is the most active form of estrogen and the most powerful form of estrogen in our body. So we start losing estradiol, the estrogen receptor alpha in your skeletal muscle, we lose that. And so this means glucose can't get into the muscle cells as efficiently, which leads to higher blood sugar and increased fat storage, especially around the midsection. So this is one of the reasons why a lot of women start gaining that belly fat within that midsection area. But here's the magic. Both strength training and also some high intensity sprint interval training can increase those GLUT4 proteins and basically creating new doors for glucose to enter your muscles. Here's the other magic. Muscle tissue is like a glucose sponge. The more muscle you have, the more places for that blood sugar to go instead of being converted to fat. So when you combine heavy lifting with some strategic high intensity work, you're essentially replacing what estrogen used to do for your glucose metabolism. You're forcing your muscles to become glucose sponges, again, even without estrogen's help. So that is very, very key, because what ends up happening when we become more insulin resistant, you are at a higher risk of type 2 diabetes. We see that women are a higher risk of type 2 diabetes. The other thing why muscle is so important, you actually look like you work out. Okay. How many women do you know, or I know, I mean, I hear this from a lot of you in the community, like you are doing all the work, working out 4 or 5 days a week. I just spoke to a woman the other day, like Pilates 4 or 5 days a week, swimming, doing all these group fitness classes, spending hours in these fitness classes, but you still look the same. But the reality is that cardio alone is not going to give you that fit, tone, defined look. You need muscle on your body to do that. And muscle gives you shape. It's what creates those nice rounded shoulder caps that make every woman look better in a tank top. It gives you the lifted butt that makes your jeans look a lot better on you. It gives you that arm definition that you want so that you can wear sleeveless tops. And then it gives you that nice subtle line down the side of your thighs that scream, I'm strong. So this is why I talk about my method, which is the Hourglass Body Method, because we are not just about like, we're going to cut calories. No, we are also going to build a strong body through strength training. And the only thing that is going to give you that beautiful shape to your body is muscle. Okay. And for those of you that are watching this live, but I'm going to show you the difference between a pound of fat, what a pound of fat looks like, and what a pound of muscle looks like. I'm going to go over that so you can see like what the difference is between this. I'm going to show you what a pound of fat and what a pound of muscle looks like. So you'll see here, this is a pound of muscle. It's like nice for those of you that are listening. It's nice and tight. It's nice and dense, right? This is exactly a pound. Okay. Now I'm going to lift up a pound of fat. Okay. So the fat is actually bigger in size and it's more obviously bumpy. It's more jiggly. And I remember when I had lost all that weight, I could still feel like, if you're looking at this, these fat cells, they're like little pockets of fat, like little bubbles. And I remember even though I had lost all that weight and I would touch my stomach, I could pinch little circles of fat. And it honestly wasn't until I actually started strength training and eating enough protein and doing it the right way that these fat bubbles, these fat little deposits started going away. And that's another reason why I was like, why? Okay, I lost all this 40 pounds. Why do I still have these fat deposits? And that's because I was carrying a lot of body fat still. I didn't change a lot of my body composition. So muscle makes you look great. I had a client of mine that was working out for years. I mean, her whole entire life. She was athletic her whole entire life. She was doing, prior to coming to me, she was doing the beach body workouts at home. And she came to me and she's like, I just want to look like I work out. And so she came to work with us in our one-on-one coaching program. We did several things with her. First of all, we tackled sleep. Okay, because you ain't going to build muscle and you ain't going to look great unless you're sleeping well. So we made sure that we got her better quality sleep. The next thing is we had her training with progressive overload strength training, making sure that she was lifting heavier every single week. And thirdly, we ensured that her nutrition was on par. She lost 24 inches in total. Her scale weight, like if we look, and this is why you can't look at the scale. So she lost 23 inches and 14 pounds, but her body composition completely changed. And she had a wedding. I believe it was her stepson's wedding. And she sent me a picture and she looked phenomenal. Her arms were so defined. She was wearing like a strapless dress. Her arms, her back, her shoulder. She looked like she worked out. She looked amazing. We completely changed her body composition. Okay, the next reason why muscle is so important. So when we lose estrogen, we lose the signals for maintaining muscle mass, okay? And without estrogen, without that estrogen receptor alpha in the skeletal muscle, we experience loss of myosin integrity. So that's the protein that makes muscles contract strongly, myosin and actin, actually. We have a decreased acetylcholine at the neuromuscular junction, meaning that your brain can't talk to your muscles as effectively. And then we have a reduced satellite signaling. These are the cells that help repair and build muscle. So the result is that we have actually a significant loss of strength and power during the menopause transition. And I've actually experienced this myself. As I've been, I'm going to be 47 next month. In about, let's see, 35 days, I'm going to be 47. And I've also started noticing that my strength is declining. And that is just due to the loss of the estrogen. And what this can lead to when we're losing strength and power, it can lead to falls and it can lead to injuries as we age. But here's what we can do about it. Heavy resistance training with proper rest between sets and creates that stimulus to maintain that nerve to muscle connection and preserve muscle contraction force. And we want to be focusing on strength. So maximum force production while we're training, because it's the neuromuscular connection that keeps us functional. So this isn't just about looking good, ladies. It's about maintaining the power to get up quickly if you fall, keeping the strength for daily activities, preserving that fast twitch muscle fiber that prevents falls in the first place, building the functional strength that keeps you independent as you continue to age, being able to get up off the floor without help, carrying your own luggage and putting it away on the overhead bin in the plane when you travel. Playing with your grandkids without throwing out your back, maintaining your independence as you age, reducing your risk of falls, because this is the number one cause of injury in older women is falling. Okay. And this is why we want to make sure that we are protecting and future proofing our bodies as we continue to age. Now, let's talk another really important thing. We're talking about muscle, but let's also talk about bone density. Every time you lift weights, you're not just building muscle, you're building bones. This is the mechanical stress that tells your bones to get stronger, increasing bone density. And this is critical because we lose up to 20% of our bone density in the 5 to 7 years as we go through our menopausal transition. Osteoporosis is not a joke. It's what turns a simple fall into a hip fracture that changes everything. But women who strength train regularly can actually increase their bone density even after menopause. It's literally the only thing proven to build bone after 40. Yesterday I was having a conversation with one of my clients, and she was talking about how her mom had become so frail. She went from being 5'4" to 5 foot because she was hunched over. She was losing muscle mass as she was continuing to age, and she had lots of fractures in her body. And she was like, I don't want to be like this. And for any of you, we see Dr. Vonda Wright. She's an orthopedic surgeon. And she talks about this all the time, like going in to do surgery on older women and their bones are like butter. And she talks about a fall can be detrimental to a woman. If a woman over the age of 65 falls and breaks her hip, her mortality rate, I think, is 35% within that first year. That's pretty high mortality rate just from falling. So ensuring that you have a strength training to build muscle is super important. And this one's not scientific, but it is just as important. There's something absolutely transformative about being strong, about knowing you can lift heavy things, about seeing muscle definition you've never had before, about being the woman at the family reunion who can move furniture without asking for help. Last week, I was doing the Dancing with the Stars dancing competition, and I wanted this room so that me and Vincent, my dancing partner at the competition, could practice. And I walked in and I moved the whole table to this. He walked in, he's like, "Did you just move this table?" I'm like, "Yeah, I moved the table." I'm like, it wasn't heavy. It was light for me. That's because I have strength to do it. This is not about being skinny. It's about being capable as we continue to age. And that's why we build muscle, not to shrink ourselves smaller, but to build ourselves stronger, because muscle isn't just a tissue. It's about independence. It's about confidence. And it's your ticket to thriving through menopause and beyond. All right. So now that you're convinced that you need to start, where do you begin? If you've never set foot in the gym, or if all you've ever known was group fitness classes and you don't know a dumbbell from a kettlebell. Okay. And so this is exactly where I started 7 years ago on my journey. I just started with some dumbbells in my basement. I had dumbbells, I had resistance bands, and I had a mat and a yoga ball. That's all I started off with. And for our clients that start off with us that have never trained before, this is all we start off with. And so this is how I got started. I did end up hiring a coach. So she gave me a customized workout program and I followed that program. And so the first few months, when our client comes to work with us, and what you need to do if you've never strength trained before is you need to work on learning the movement patterns, the basic movement patterns, which we call squat, a hinge, which is like a deadlift, a push, which is like a push up. Then we have pulls, which are like lat pull downs, right? Then we have a carry, and the other pushes too would be shoulder presses and also chest presses as well too. And then we have pulls, which are like rows, and then we have carries as well too, and then hip thrusts as well. We want to practice these basic movement patterns. And so what we typically do with our clients when they start working with us is we start teaching them proper form. We work on basic. So for a squat, it would be something like a box squat. Okay, so this is like where you're sitting down and you're like sitting on a chair and getting back up again. Or we're doing an air squat with no weight. Or maybe then we progress to a squat with like maybe a resistance band around their knees. Then we progress to a squat with some dumbbells. And we keep working on that. And then we do with the hinges, these would be your deadlifts. Okay. So with the hinges, these would be like a Romanian deadlift. And maybe we start off with, some very light weights with the Romanian deadlift. Then we move to a regular deadlift, right? And then we continue to progress from there. And then with the pushes, this would be like our shoulder presses. We want to start off with some weights, very light weights. Maybe it's 5 pounds. Then we move to chest presses and we start doing variations of these things. Then we start working on rows. And this would be something like a 1-arm row. Then we could do a 2-arm row. And so a lot of these exercises might start off with some body weight. So stuff like push-ups, squats, lunges. We start off with some body weight. Then we move on with some light weights. But what we're really doing in the first few months is teaching proper form, starting with lighter weights, resistance bands, or body weights. Maybe we're working out 2 or 3 days a week, full body. We start understanding rest periods. So this is, like doing a set of like 8 to 10 reps and then resting in between, adequately in between, learning how to breathe properly during your strength training set, and just working on consistency, on showing up. And this is a hard part for a lot of women, is that it's hard for them to show up and be consistent. And then the other thing that we work on is that our clients send us form feedback videos so that we can ensure proper form and technique. So they do a video of themselves and then they send it to us and we make sure that their form is good. Or sometimes on a check-in call with us, we're on Zoom with them. So we're like, okay, can you want to demonstrate that in front of you? So we're really, really working on it. And so our clients, and what you'll start to notice as well too, because this is totally something that you could do, is they feel like they can actually do this. They start understanding muscle activation. They have less joint pain as their form improves and they continue to get stronger. And then, so that's what we focus on the first, 1 to 3 months with them when they're very new to strength training. Then months 3 to 6, we start building off of that. So what we are looking and always trying to teach our clients is progressive overload training. And so what that means is that, first of all, we're doing a set program for 4 to 6 weeks. We are not doing random workouts every week. They don't get a new workout every single time they train. We work on progressive overload strength training so that your body, and what this means is, like, if it's a 3-day workout, you're doing every Monday, you're doing the same. Let's say you work out Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Every Monday, you're doing the same workout. Every Wednesday, you're doing the same workout. Every Friday, you're doing the same workout. So we build it up into day 1, day 2, day 3 training workouts or exercise routines. And they are repeating that for at least, we do typically 6 weeks. And so in months 3 to 6, what we're really trying to work with them is teaching them how to progressively lift heavier. So the first week of that program, it's always like a deload week. We're going 50% of the week. It's like an acclimation week where they're learning the new exercises. They're going very slow with their tempo. We're working on that. And then, weeks 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, we are tracking their workouts. So they have an app that we give them, and they know exactly what they're doing. But they're tracking their weights. And this is very important, is that you track your weight. Write it down on a piece of paper if you don't have a program. The next time you go and do that, you want to beat that score. Even if you're lifting 1 or 2 pounds heavier, or even a half a pound, you can get these little micro weights that are like 1 pound that you can add on to your dumbbells, because a lot of the dumbbells jump from like 5 to 10 pounds. Well, like maybe you want to do 6, or maybe you want to do 7.5. You can always invest in these micro weight plates that you just snap on to your dumbbells. And what we're working with them is on improving range of motion and really helping them learn how to progressively overload. We start working on more challenging variations of the squat, the deadlift. Maybe we start bringing in some, if they're ready for it, moving to a barbell, right? But typically we don't see clients ready to move into a barbell until either they've had a lot of experience strength training or at least 6 months plus. So what we're working on in months 3 to 6 is really teaching them to track their weights continuously, improve and add more weights, and continuously progressively overload. So what that means is that at the beginning of the program, maybe they're lifting 10 pounds. By the end of that program, they're lifting 20 pounds. Let's say it was a shoulder press, or let's say it was like a goblet squat. Maybe at the beginning of that goblet squat, they started at 30 pounds. At the end, they're at 50. So typically in months 3 to 6, you start noticing more muscle definition. Your clothes fit you a lot differently because you're losing a lot of inches. You feel stronger. You have better balance and control. You have increased energy from better blood sugar regulation. And you have a sense of empowerment that, wow, I can lift heavy weights. And then typically from month 6 to 12, we start introducing more heavier loads. Maybe we change the rep range from like 8 to 12 reps to like 6 to 8 reps. This is where we get really strategic about maybe bringing in a barbell, a little bit heavier equipment, investing in some more equipment, like bringing in a bench. A bench is very ideal as well, too, if you're working out at home. This is where a lot of our clients start expanding their home gym, getting heavier weights because they're going to grow out of the weights that they have already, investing in a barbell, investing in some weight plates, maybe investing in a squat rack. Or some of our clients might just move to a gym at that point. I never did. I always worked out from home. I live out in the country, so it's not feasible for me to like work out at a gym. It's just too far for me. So I always continued to invest in a home gym, and now I have a huge home gym here. You know, I am now a fitness and nutrition coach, but back then when I was starting off, you know, and I was on my journey, I just kept, you know, building up my home gym. And then, you know, maybe bringing in some pulley system as well too. That's what I ended up doing, is getting like a kind of like a small multifunctional machine where I can do a lat pull down, and it had like a tall, it had a high, mid, and a low pulley on it. So I could do like rows with the pulley. I could do a lat pull down with it. There was, you know, I could do bicep curls with it as well too. There was lots of variations that I started bringing in. So, month 6 to 12, it's again bringing it, learning to get to a point where you're lifting heavy load, and it's not going to happen right away, but you do need time to learn how to do the movement patterns to get to a point where, like at month 12, you know, you're deadlifting 80, 90 pounds, squatting 90, 100 pounds, hip thrusting 100, 150 pounds. But the point is that we need to continuously lift heavier. And then also start working in the strength rep ranges, which is like 4 to 6 reps, where you're going really, really heavy with your load. But the thing is that you have to do it safely. And so it does require, if you've never strength trained before, to really master those movement patterns first. And so one thing that I will point out is that you need to always work on those compound movements. Compound movements are multi-joint, multi-muscle movements. And then you can bring in some isolation work, like the bicep curl or the tricep extension. Or, you know, if you're at a gym, the leg extension or the hamstring curls. Those are more like isolating exercises. And we can bring some isolation exercises in as well too. But it is really important to focus on those compound movements, because those are going to give you the better bang for your buck. And you think about it, they relate to actual life. They relate to actual life. A squat, going up and down a stairs. A hinge, a deadlift, picking up heavy things off the floor. A push, like a shoulder press, grabbing things over your head to grab things above the head, like over top of you on a shelf. A row, pulling a couch, pulling furniture towards you. Like, these are all relative to life and doing these life activities. The next thing, so that is how you would start strength training. And for, you know, any of you, one of the biggest mistakes that I made is doing random workouts on YouTube. I was just like, every week, I'm like, okay, what workout am I going to do today? You want a progressive overload strength training program. Like, if you're going to put in the time to do this, make sure you're doing this right. And in terms of, speaking of doing this right, you know, I can't talk about building muscle without talking about protein, because here's what nobody tells you. You can lift all the weights in the world, but if you're eating like a bird, so not eating enough fuel, and you're not eating enough protein, you will not build muscle. So most women our age think they're eating enough protein until they do my 7-day fat loss kickstart challenge, and they start weighing out their food and realizing what 30 grams of protein looks like. Most of them are getting 50, maybe 60 grams of protein in a day. That's like trying to build a house with half the bricks. You need at least 1 gram of protein per pound of goal weight or current body weight. So if you're a 140-pound woman, you need 140 grams of protein. If you're a woman that says your goal weight is 150 pounds, then you need 150 grams of protein. Here's what changed everything for me, and I want you to understand. This isn't about punishment. It's not about hating your body into submission. It's not about earning your food or burning off, you know, calories. It's about becoming the strongest version of yourself because of menopause, not in spite of it. Every time you pick up a weight, you're literally telling your body, we're not giving up. We're not becoming frail. We're not accepting weakness as our future. One of my clients just told me last week, I used to strength train to look good in a bikini. Now I strength train so I can pick up my grandchildren without throwing out my back. That's the shift. We're not chasing, 30-year-old bodies here. We're building bodies that will carry us powerfully over the next 30 years. So what I want you to do today is I want you to, if you want to start strength training, I want you to pick 3 days, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, whatever. I want you to mark them in your calendar as your strength training days. And I want you to practice those compound movements that I told you. And I want you to start doing them, practice them. You can look them up. I would ideally recommend that you get a workout program, a progressive overload workout program. But if you can't do that, start practicing these movements at home. And the other thing that I would really recommend is you got to start tracking your food. Use an app like Chronometer and get clear on what's going on with your nutrition. How much protein are you actually getting in? And if you want help with this, I run a free 7-day challenge. It's my free 7-day hormone reset and fat loss kickstart challenge. And all we are doing in this challenge is I am teaching you how to get 30 grams of protein in at each meal and how to track your food in a food tracking app like Chronometer or MyFitnessPal, although I do like Chronometer better, and getting some daily walking in, some movement in. And at the end of the 7-day challenge, if you complete it and you email me and show me that you did the work, I will give you a free beginner 3-day strength training program. So I'll put the link to that in the show notes. I know this could be scary, getting into this, but here's what I want you to know after I've coached hundreds of women through this. The woman who starts today, even if she can only do 3 wall push-ups, is going to be eventually deadlifting or hip thrusting her body weight and feeling absolutely strong and powerful. The woman who keeps waiting for the perfect time is going to be having the same conversation with herself next year, except she'll be weaker and more frustrated. So we need a different approach for this season of our life. What used to work for us in our 20s and 30s is not going to work for us anymore in our 40s, 50s, and 60s and beyond. And that approach, it starts with picking up something heavy and putting it back down. It's literally that simple. Because I promise you, the strongest, most confident season is ahead of you. You just have to be brave enough to pick up the weight. So if you want to get started with my 7-day challenge, I'll put that in the show notes below. You can join that. It's absolutely free. You get a lot of free resources from me. You get daily videos from me and more education from me. And you are actually going to start putting some action into work. Okay, if you're thinking about, you want to do all of this, you want to get healthy, you want to eat more protein, you want to do all of those things, I'm going to help you put that into action. So until next time, ladies, remember, we're not getting older, we're getting stronger. So this is me reminding you that menopause isn't the end of your fitness story. It's just the beginning of your strength chapter. So I will see you again next week, ladies. Thank you so much for joining me today. For those of you that want to watch a live recording of this, you can join me in my Facebook group. That's going to be in the show notes as well, too. I record this podcast live in my Facebook group, which gives you an opportunity to come and ask me questions live. If you have any questions, I don't believe we have any questions today, but if you want to come and join and watch me do this, record this live, you are more than welcome to. Until next time, we will see you again, ladies. Have a great one. Thanks for tuning in to the Muscle Strength and Menopause podcast. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you hit the follow, leave a 5-star review, or share this with another woman over 40 who needs to hear this message. And if you're ready to stop working against your hormones and start building the muscle that becomes your menopause superpower, visit sarahfrenzafitness.com to learn about my one-on-one coaching program using my signature Hourglass Body Method. Remember, this isn't your decline, ladies. This is your comeback. And so I hope you tune in again next week. Now, before we go, a quick reminder, this podcast offers health, nutrition, and fitness information for entertainment and educational purpose only. Always consult with your physician or healthcare professional for any health-related questions, and remember that any information provided here is at your own risk.